everyone, and welcome to episode 126 of the Rewarding Property Decisions podcast. So today I wanted to discuss an article that I wrote for the Australian Financial Review about a month or so ago. And you'll be able to find a link to that article in the blog or podcast summary that we'll put up. But we discussed the impacts of negative gearing and the capital gains tax changes, and whether investors will now consider brand new properties because of those changes. Obviously, now that the focus for negative gearing is only for brand new or off the plan purchases, and the same with the capital gains tax changes, which are and now if you do buy off the plan, you can still continue to use the 50% discount, or you can choose to use the index model that will be applicable to all established investment properties purchased from now onwards. But we also cautioned in the article around the fact that if you do go down the off the plan path, bear in mind that the objective here from the federal government's perspective is to assist with the increase of supply. So they're trying to encourage more construction rather than the objective of most property investors, which is to create wealth. And that's typically what you would more likely get out of an established property than out of an off the plan one. So what this did, though, from our perspective, was it brought about a question around homeowners and how, now that many of them might be having second thoughts about going out and buying an investment property, how is that going to change their strategy, and should it change their mindset around the existing home? It's long been viewed as an investment asset, but rightly the focus is always put on the lifestyle characteristics and lifestyle elements that people would want. And fundamentally, this needs to remain the primary focus. However, given these changes, how can you use it to your advantage? Obviously, the home is the principal place of residence and is not subject to capital gains tax. So could it now be treated as a wealth creation tool as opposed to just being solely the home that you live in? So what we wanted to do is look at this and see how that might be usable. And what we're referring to it going forward as is homevesting. So looking at the home, but looking at it through an investment lens. So similar to the previous descriptions of rent vesting, but now looking at it from a home perspective. So the first step that you need to really consider when looking at this is your existing position and what are you looking to achieve out of that. So for most people who are considering buying an investment property, you've probably got your home sorted. Now, it may be that it's owned outright. It may be that you own it in conjunction with the bank, but you own a home as opposed to being a first home buyer. Now, if that is the case, you then need to probably review that property to determine, does it meet your requirements? Now, does it meet your lifestyle requirements? Or does it meet your wealth creation requirements, if that's what you're looking to do? So from a lifestyle perspective, is the home currently suitable for what you're after? And is it going to be suitable for what you need in the years to come? Or is it something that perhaps taking advantage now of flatter markets, that it might be a time to upgrade? So that's looking at from a lifestyle perspective, considering things like the block size. So for those that are looking to upsize, it might be that you've got toddlers but needing more outdoor space, and therefore needing to go from a villa unit, which is a little bit small, into something with a bit more land, a bit more backyard, that type of thing. But it could be the reverse. It could be that your children have all left home and you've got 900 square metre block size, and it's a wasted space and you're getting sick of maintaining it, and therefore it's overkill for what you're after. So perhaps that's an over the top, and so therefore you could look to change that. Then it could be from the improvements on the site. So it could be from a bedrooms perspective. And again, perhaps you've only got a 2-bedroom unit with a couple of kids, and they're going to need a bit more space. Or again, on the flip side, if you're downsizing, do you really need a 4 or 5 bedroom home when there's no one else living in apart from yourself and your partner? So considering those sorts of positions, bathrooms are a big one, particularly for growing families. Living spaces are also a big one for growing families, in the sense that one large open plan living area is fine when children are young, but once they get a little bit older, they want their own space. And so having 2 living zones might be becoming more and more important. So these sorts of characteristics can be really important. And then it can come to locations as well. So school zones are a big one for people to consider. Perhaps again, you're coming through primary school, looking to get into where the kids will go to secondary school. public school, private school, and if it is down the public school path, getting into a school zone can be really important to people. Or perhaps not needing to be in a school zone anymore and having money tied up in an asset that is heavily influenced by school zones. Do you really need to be there? Or could you move 2 streets over, be outside the school zone and free up a huge amount of equity that you really don't need? Public transport, public open space, all of these attributes from a location perspective can be key characteristics that people need to consider. So these are things to look at from an existing home perspective. Then it's to look at the house itself to consider, is it actually a growth asset? And is that something that I really want it to be? So growth characteristics take into account in what drives capital growth, and looking at it with an investment lens. So things that we look for when we've purchased investment properties in the past, they can be things that you try and put over the top of your home to see whether or not they meet those requirements. Obviously, they're not going to be exactly the same. If someone wants a family home, a 2-bedroom terrace house, which makes a great investment property, is not going to be suitable. So it's not the expectation that you go out and buy that type of property, but it's to look at what are the fundamentals that mean a terrace house or a single fronted cottage, which do make good investment properties, but what are the fundamentals of those that mean that they are good growth assets? And that comes back to the 3 elements that I've spoken about on this podcast many times. That's the underlying land value, so being in an area where land is at a premium, it's not readily available, and people want to be there. The second is the scarcity of the property, so something that's not being replicated and having more and more of the same thing being built, but is at a premium because that's what people want. And the third is having something that's got multifaceted demand. Now, having properties that tick or have characteristics that help achieve those 3 drivers will help you to have the characteristics that will give you an asset that will be in the growth characteristics. Obviously, again, I come back to, and I will repeat myself a lot during the podcast about this, the home still needs to be the home. It still needs to have the lifestyle characteristics. But if you can get those other elements to it as well, then you get the both, and you get the benefits of the lifestyle, plus you get the benefits of the growth side of things as well. Then you need to look at your home and look at, well, can it be renovated? Would I prefer to stay here? And usually for those that do look to do the renovation side of things, it's more often than not being driven by the fact that they love the location. They love where they live. They really don't want to move at all, but the improvements on the site perhaps are no longer going to meet the requirements. So that might again be from an upsizing perspective. It might be the fact that we just don't have the space here. We need another living room, we need another bedroom, we need another bathroom, whatever those elements are. But does the property offer the space for us to be able to do that? And does it offer the space to be able to do it relatively easily? And also, does it mean that we're going to compromise the existing floor plan or existing flow of the house? So it's all well and good, and you see this with, particularly with terrace houses, and again, not necessarily them being the example, but if people want to add an extra bedroom, in the past they've just been added on into the rear yard, which can then really interrupt the flow because you'll have 2 bedrooms at the front of the house, then perhaps a living room, kitchen in the middle, and then to tack another bedroom on at the rear or as a mezzanine, you can then compromise the ground floor if it's not done properly. So making sure that when you do these renovations, it's complementary of the existing house that's already there. I think that's a really important component of this. And then if you're looking at doing things, is it going to continue to make the property balanced? So it's all well and good to add another bedroom and add another bathroom, but if that takes you from a 3 to a 4 bedroom house and you've still only got 1 living zone, then perhaps the floor plan's starting to become unbalanced. So making sure that the home is complementary, that the renovation, is complementary to the existing home, I think is a really important characteristic. The other is to go the other way. So it might be that you're on that, like we said, when you're downsizing, if you've got a family home that is just too big and there's too much maintenance, but you love the location and you love the house itself, well, is there an opportunity to perhaps subdivide the rear section of the land off? And you could sell it to a developer. You could do it yourself if you've got the wherewithal. You could construct something in the backyard, sell that off. You keep your location, you keep your existing home if it meets your requirements, but you're able to free up cash and things going forward as well. So there's options in that regard too that could mean that property's suitable. Now, having said all of that, just because you can renovate doesn't mean you should renovate. And that might be that it's perhaps just not something that you want to do. A lot of people just don't have the appetite to do renovations. It's a big job, and it's something that not everyone is up for. a lot of people buy homes with the intention of, oh, it suits me now, but I'll do it down the track, and then get to the point of saying, no, it's just not for me. But there's other things too. So again, just because you want to doesn't mean you should. It might be the sort of property that isn't going to respond well to a renovation, and therefore you could get to the point of overcapitalising on it and spending money unnecessarily and not necessarily improving the value. So there's that needs to be considered as well. But you also need to, before going down the path of deciding to do the work, is look at the costs associated with renovating versus look at the costs associated with moving. So when renovating, it's obviously the building costs, but it's also the likelihood that you'll have to pay rent because you'll need to move out for a period of time. With the moving costs, it's the selling fees of your existing property, it's the legal fees that you'll have to pay to buy and then obviously to sell as well, stamp duty for buying, and then obviously moving costs. So there's things there that you need to use to weigh up what are we going to have at the end of the day, and which property would we prefer, but also what are the costs associated with either strategy as well that we need to then take into account. So is the renovation going to be justified? Is it really going to be worth doing? Or is it going to cost us more than what it's actually going to add? And that's quite often the case, particularly in the short term. And the other factor too is, once we've done this renovation, how long are we then likely to stay here? So if you're going to do a significant renovation, but perhaps only be there for 5 years, then there's a very good chance that what you're going to spend may not necessarily be recuperated come the sale. So you may be better off just making that move, or if you can put up with the house for another 3 to 4 years, then make the move then, as opposed to spending significant amounts of money only to then move 3 to 4 years later, and it's not going to be beneficial. So understanding and putting a really clear plan in process as to what your intentions are over the coming years, I think that's a really important part of making those sorts of decisions. But once you do get to that point and you've decided, no, the existing home is no longer suitable, whether it's for lifestyle or whether it's for financial reasons, we're going to need to make a move. What's next? What do you look for? And so the first thing to do is to understand what is your priority if you are making this move. So why are you moving? Is it because, as I said before, is it because of the lifestyle reasons and the property no longer meets those? Or is it because you are looking to set this up as partially an investment strategy so that you have got an asset that's perhaps more wealth creation focused? And therefore, what are the attributes of the next property going to look like? Now, again, I'll say it again, it is very much about the home and the lifestyle, but if you're going down the wealth creation path of the home asset, then you need to have that investment lens. And are we going to be able to match the two to make sure that you can still get the lifestyle elements, but you can still get the growth assets as well, so that you are making this decision for the right reasons? And once you've got all that sorted, then you can prioritise the factors that are really important to you. And as I said earlier, if it is to do with the asset selection and it is to do with wealth creation, then really focus on those 3 key elements to make sure that you're getting at something that's got a really good underlying land value, that's something that's got scarcity value to the property so that there is going to be demand for that, and something that has got multifaceted demand. So it's not just one buyer profile that's going to be focused on that. We talked a lot in the article with the Fin Review about a scarce asset versus an anomalous asset. And the anomalous obviously is something that isn't necessarily going to have multifaceted demand. It's possibly only going to have limited demand within a marketplace, and therefore the growth prospects for something like that are limited. You might get someone who comes out of the woodwork every so often because it exactly meets their requirements, but most of the time the market doesn't see value in this type of property because it is an anomalous asset. So really get a clear understanding of what the market wants, so that you've got those characteristics that will drive growth. And if it can match up with what you need from a lifestyle perspective, then you're on a winner there. So Homevesting, if it is going to be a major part of your strategy, define the objectives so that you know exactly where you're going to be when you start the process. Always remember, home is the most important thing. It needs to meet your lifestyle requirements. There's no point in having a growth asset that you can't fit into or that it's too big for you. Make sure it meets the lifestyle requirements and then get the growth characteristics right to go with it. But with the right decisions, it can become a really sound investment decision. And if you do it the right way, can hopefully work for both purposes, both the lifestyle plus the growth characteristics. So thanks very much for joining me for episode 126 of the Rewarding Property Decisions podcast. As always, please feel free to share the podcast far and wide. Follow us, subscribe on all of our social media channels. Otherwise, if you'd like further information, visit the website wakeham.com.au, and otherwise we wish you all the best with your property decisions.